It's Mike Madge back with SailJuice.com and continuing our DN series. Today, again, we have 12-time DN World Champion Karol Jablonski with us, and he's going to be talking about sails. Karol is an advisor for 1D sails, the DN sails that are made in Europe, and he's going to talk to us specifically about those sails and where to use them, what conditions, and thanks for joining us, Karol. Appreciate you being on the show again.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be with you guys. Thank you, Mike, for the invitation.
So maybe you could start us off just with your role at 1D Sails.
Yeah, the role is pretty simple, as I am one of the guys who has created the brand and has a lot of previous experience with sailmakers in Germany or Hong Kong or everywhere around the world, and North Sails as well. And I have a big, I was a great experience in giving input to the sailmakers in all classes I used to sail, not only on the DN. So here, coming back to the 1D sails, I am the guy who speaks to the designer closely, and I test the sails. We design the sails the way I want to have it. So I'm not qualified enough to work with the computer to put all the changes. So as I said before, we sit together closely. He did the changes, and then we see the results in the loft, and first on the screen, and then in the loft, once we see the sail, simulating the kind of ice sailing position, then I go on the ice and I test the sail.
So how many different types of DN sails does 1D produce?
Yeah, we went through a kind of long development and changes in our sail program, and I think okay, we started to build those sails in 2000, so I can easily say that since 2000, it's 20 years are gone, and we developed our sail program, and the key for me has been always to make it as simple as possible, because at the beginning we had like let's say four sails available depending on the wind strength and ice conditions. But since actually 10 years, the program consists out of only 2 sails. This is that's we call it one sail Power Gold, which is more powerful sail, and the other sail, this is F-Speed. So the bonus of having only 2 sails is quite simple. You don't have any problems coming to the Worlds or Europeans where you allowed only to use 2 sails to stamp them. You have 2 sails on the ice, and you know that you have 2 sails which have a very nice overlapping range. I will speak detailed about the wind strength later on, but you have 2 sails which are fast in certain these conditions which, for which they are designed. So Power Gold. This is the sail which is more powerful, like the name says, and we use this sail up to 6-7 meters per second even on the black ice. And F-Speed, this is the sail which goes from, let's say, 4 meters per second, depending on the ice quality and how fast is the ice, up to the 10-12 meters per second. And in the reality, we know exactly that normally when the wind is over 10 meters per second, in the last years, we don't run any regatta. But if you want to be fast in these conditions, definitely you need another sail which is a little bit smaller and which is much flatter. So this sail we got as well in the program, but this is additional one. And yes, what we decided to do since actually 3-4 years ago, we decided to build the sails or design a little bit different shape for the guys which are heavier or lighter. So if somebody orders sails by 1D, the first question, the first question is how heavy you are, and second question is what kind of mast do you have, and then we have let's say the crossover, the ranges, because you cannot build the same deep sail or flat sail for the guy who's heavy, who's 90 kilograms heavy, and 70 kilograms. So let's say now we have a Power Gold, which is designed for guys above 75 or 80 kilograms, or for lighter persons. The same is like with the F-Speed. So we didn't change the name of the sail, because if somebody is quite light, let's say 70 kilograms, he's gonna get Power Gold and he's gonna get F-Speed. But they have a different names at the end. So it's going to be Power Gold and F-Speed, just AF, which is flat sail. And the name comes actually from Anja Fiedler. This is the German sailor. She's light, and she was the first actually person, and she got the modified standard F-Speed. So she was, since then she was going much faster, and her friend Holger Betzke couldn't even match up her speed on the black ice in strong breeze. So that was big improvement for her. She was happy, and then then we followed the idea, and we offered this kind of sail for lighter persons.
So a question I would have for you is, now you got your two sails. So ideally, you're looking at your wind speed, your ice conditions. But I mean, I'm sure it's happened where you're out, you're racing, maybe you got your speed sail on, and the wind drops off. Now on a DN, obviously you can't adjust your out haul. There's no real downhaul adjustment. There's no adjustment you can make on the ice. So how would you adjust your sailing if you're out there, got your speed sail on, and the wind drops off?
Yeah, this is a good question, and this is the point. And on the opposite way, it is the same if you come to the higher range with your deepest sail. So the only way to to work with the shape is it means you have to work with the buttons. So answering your question, I only, if the wind drops a little bit and I have a flat sail, but I like the sail still, I will put, in the top, as a top button, a little bit softer button, and I would put definitely more tension into them, and maybe accordingly I would change my setup of the mast of the rake. I would go a little bit more forward, more upright on this position to give more power. But the Power Gold we have, this is actually what we call the deepest sail compared to the other sail makers, and this sail covers quite a wide range of wind speed and wind speed and boat speed. But let's say about 4 or 5 meters per second. When you want to use this sail, definitely you have to change the buttons, and we got specially designed buttons, carbon buttons for the sail, and it makes a huge difference.
Now, just getting back, just to follow up on that. Now, that's an adjustment you can make on the ice. But I'm saying, okay, you're out on your course. You've done your first lap of your race. You've got, in 10 meters per second, black ice. All of a sudden, the third lap, you start getting into lighter wind. Are you compensating for that by sailing bigger angles, or?
You have to change your 5G a little bit, but if you are, with 10 meters per second and it's dropped to 8 meters per second, this is not a huge difference. But the problem is if you have, let's say, 7-8 meters per second and suddenly it drops to 4 meters per second, and then you need the kind of power. So I think our sails are known for this wider range than the I would say other sails, and when the wind drops, we have a kind of edge of to the other competition. This is obvious, and if you want to change something, there is not much you can change. Actually, okay, you have to change your sailing angle, yeah, like as you said, but definitely you cannot shoot as hard as you been shooting pulling the main sheet before. So you have to watch. You have to look at the telltales, because once the wind drops and the mast is not bending a much, you don't have enough apparent speed, then the entry of the sails might look quite flat, and you will be seeing the telltales flapping. I mean, making the turns, and especially on the downwind course. So if you just for the technique, I mean, if you have a lower, I mean, lighter breeze than expected in the wind drops, and on the downwind course, it is easy. I mean, it is better, I think, to sail a little bit higher angle, but with less tension on the main sheet.
Thank you. Now, these sails you design, you said you want to know what mast they have, but would they, you know, you've got a few different mast makers out there. Are they compatible with all the different top mast makers, your sails?
Yeah, in the last years, we've seen a quite big development in the technology, and I mean the masts must have changed a lot. They bending characteristic. They change a lot. I mean, they're bending, but they're bending a completely different way than before. So for us, it's been a quite difficult task in order to, let's say, produce sails which are going to fit to the wider range of masts. And I mean, it is obvious that some sailors are quite happy with this mast sail combination, because they got a mast or sail which fit together. But you know, I personally, this year I sailed on 2 masts, which you know, the bend characteristic is quite close, but I could significantly see a different in the shape of the sails when I changed the masts. And then if you see this and you know what to do, you can do a small recap. But this is a kind of individual process. And you know, when I work with the top sailors here in Poland or in Sweden, in Europe, I see their sails and I say, hey, listen, we gotta change maybe laugh curve here a little bit, and we have to just get less or more, because your mast is, you know, too stiff in the top, or it is too soft or bending. You know, the problem is the bend fore and aft bend. And I personally, I've tested few masts. They were so soft in the fore and aft bend. Then when I had my deepest sail on the mast, and then I pulled the main sheet a little bit, and I just look at the sail, I see there is no shape in the sail. So I thought actually that I sail with the F-speed. Yes, because the sail was as flat as the F-speed normal, but no, that was the mast, which is too soft fore and aft bend, so it bends forward more, it pulls all the shape out of the sail, so you're gonna miss the acceleration, and then I mean, then you got a problem. And some guys came back to me, and we just find a solution. We just were adding a little bit more laugh curve to the sail. We were changing sails according to the mast bend what they got. So it is a process. It is a process, and it is. We shouldn't forget that the mast, this is actually handmade, custom made everything, and even those guys are trying hard to come up with the solutions with the product, which is going to be quite, I would say, accurate, but it is very difficult to achieve it.
So when you go out and your test, so the sails, I mean, obviously the cloth still 6.5 ounce. The sail area still the same. How much has the sails changed over the years in terms of design? Has there been a big change?
Our sails, I mean, we changed radically our design. I mean, even if it's still white and has got this 6.5 ounce cloth, this is what we actually have achieved. That covering the wider range of wind. It is quite, a difficult task. So the sail has to be at the beginning. The sail has to be quite powerful. And then once we get faster, you want to get rid out of the profile. So definitely we changed this. We developed the shape of the sail, and now we are quite happy with it. That's why our Power Gold sail, I would say, it is very fast in the lower range, the fastest sail in the lower range. Or sticky conditions, but still it's holding. It is quite fast, or I would say very good in 5, 6, or 7 meters per second.
So when you're testing out a sail, and you go out there, how are you testing to see, like, if you want to make any changes and recommend it? Are you two-boat testing? Are you bringing some electronics out there? Is it more seat of the pants feel?
Yeah, this is a quite, I would say, testing become more complicated in the last years because of the very tricky conditions, weather conditions, and in reality, I must say, I got like 3-4 sails which I designed as a test sails. But in reality, I never had a chance to do a proper testing, because if you want to test a certain sail, you have to test in the proper conditions. So you have to get there. But answering your question, yes, we use. If the best results you see when you sail with 2 or 3 boats together, but you need a good partners, and I am. Quite fortunate to have them. So if I line up with those guys, I know they fast, and every change we make, you can notice if it is positive or negative, and you learn out of it. But as I said, the ice conditions and the wind conditions, they have to be relevant, and you can trust them. So no much time for testing now. Small changes only.
So and I do a lot of comparison to laser class. I compete in the laser class. A laser sail, even though they've improved the sail, it's to a 4.5 ounce cloth. Most guys are changing their sails every second regatta and getting a brand new sail. In the DN class, now I know it's hard to compare because it depends on the usage, but what are you looking at, a certain number of hours where you're retiring a sail, or?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and I think laser class is a very specific one, and you need definitely quite pretty often a new sail, and in the DN it is a bit different, but it is still depend how strong was the breeze you said. So you have to be actually looking at the sail, and if the material is getting tired, you will see this that the sail starts flapping, and the leech they starts to be a little bit tired, and even if it's still white, but we have to remember that this cloth is not stiff enough, and it's all about the shape, and the sail has to hold the shape once you go very fast. And once the cloth is getting tired, you don't see maybe this, but all this, the profile, the depth of the profile is moving aft. It's not staying there where it should be, where it was designed, and this is slowing you down. But I think a lot of guys are they notice this. That the 2 years, 3 years time, 2 years, this is already time to change for change. And yes, some guys, they sail with 10 years old sails, and even the last regatta at Zegje, I had in a strong breeze, there was a junior, and he was going faster than we actually. And after the regatta, after the race, I come back to him and ask, look at the sail, and I said, okay, this is Speed Plus sail from 2008, but it looked nicely, and wasn't tired. This guy was very fast, and he was very happy. But we shouldn't forget as well that the sail is getting quite tired during the transportation. And as well, if you're just changing the sails on the ice, the way how you drop it, the way how you hoist it, and if you take care about all this, definitely your sail is gonna have longer life. But if you don't take care of it, you gotta order it quite frequently.
So another question I have is, and more for new people getting into the class, especially coming from smaller boats, where it seems like when you're sailing a slower boat, laser, one of the smaller boats, the telltales are definitely more receptive. With the DN, you're typically going fast, the apparent wind's forward. Is there a little different way of reading telltales? Like sometimes it seems like you're always being headed, especially in light air. And the common mistake I find is people just keep putting off, trying to get those telltales perfect. What suggestions would you have there?
Yeah, I think the telltales, they do the job in the ice sailing as well. So you have to be focused that they showing into the right direction. You gotta be sure if they showing not into the right direction, I mean going up or down and or floating around, which means this is not an optimal airflow on your sail, which is not fast. So you have to do something. But then you have to ease the sail a little bit, or you have to pull tighter, or you have to change your course, adapt your course. So, and this should happen quite, this is what you have to do. And then you see the result. You have to do, as long as you're going to find the proper, the telltales will showing you that the sail is properly trimmed. And what is important in the ice, we forget, because we used to always look at the telltales close to the mast. They are just 20 cm from the mast, but you gotta look at the top button. At the back there is mostly the red piece of background, and this is the most important actually indicator if the sail is over trimmed or not, and if it's got enough twist or if it doesn't have. So if it is falling down, this is not enough twist, and you gotta ease a bit off. And if it's coming up, you can pull more. But this is easy. If you just observe those telltales, you work with with the setup of the sail, you will be going fast. It's very important. You cannot ignore them. Otherwise, no sign makers would take time and put them on if they wouldn't be important.
Do you use leech telltales at all?
Yes, I use the top, especially the top one, the leech telltales. This is very important indicator, as I said before.
Now, and just probably just one last question. I mean, again, for newbies, like a lot of people think, well, I got to have all the newest stuff. But I mean, you mentioned before, you got to have the whole combination, your mast, your sail. So, I mean, it's no use, a person with aluminum mast racing out and buying this brand new fancy sail.
Yeah, you don't have to get aluminium mast, but this is, if you speak about aluminium mast, this is another generation. And I must say, if you're going to put our sail or a modern sail on the aluminium mast, first of all, you're never going to get flat, because this mast doesn't bend as much as it should be in order to pull out all this depth of the profile. And it is going to be slow. And yes, having even if you have I would say stiff carbon mass or too stiff another mast, then it's not gonna work with the nice with the sail, and you have to find out. So I mean, definitely you can do some changes. If you go with aluminium mast, I don't think you expect go as fast as those guys who has invested more money into the new equipment. This is like with the cars, you know. you got 300 or 500 horsepower, and you come with the old Golf or old Buick, and you're never gonna get as fast. You cannot expect this,
No.
unless you put some extra engine in.
All right, well, thanks, Karol. That was an excellent talk we had, and hopefully, again, it's helping everybody out. Again, I'm learning lots from you, and I appreciate your time with coming on and chatting that with us.
Thank you, pleasure, guys, and thank you, Mike. See you next time. Bye bye.